I appreciate you guys letting me be here this morning. The last time I was here, I took up all your time. So today, we're done in like 5 minutes. So, because you guys, I love it because you guys, you actually do what your title says. You sharpen each other. And so, what I'd love to do this morning, in just a brief, this is what cracks me up. I think this is a clue. This in the cop world, this would be a clue. Like, Jason, we need you to stick on time here. So there's batteries. I was going to wear a chain like that rapper from the 80s, but Flavor Flav. Yeah. Wow. Whew. That goes back. Okay. I just want to talk to us, and I say us because I'm talking to myself. Really, you're just my mirror right now. Because everything that I'm going to talk about this morning to you, I have not only shared with myself in the mirror, read about it, studied it, processed it, and I still come back to it. Because I tend to forget things. I tend to, and again, my life is a very complex life sometimes. Because I can sit with a couple and they'll tell me all about their struggles. And I am really good at giving them advice. Oh, some of you know what it is. You know what I'm going to say. And then you go home and you do the exact opposite. Like, that advice is for you. You need this advice. I don't need this advice. I'm giving you advice, which tends to put us in a seat where we forget. And so what I'd love to do is take away the seat. I'd love to just view you as a mirror, because when I look at you, I'm actually seeing me. A guy who is just eager to learn, eager to get better, eager to know that humility is actually the best posture, not only before my wife and my kids, but my friends and the extended family that I have, which is you. And you're like, wow, I don't even know you. And I'm like, yeah, we're family. So this Christmas, I wear an extra large. Be more than happy to receive that gift. No, that's not very funny. All right. So let's get going. As a trooper for 17 years, and Shariars are awesome. I love it. I tell people I get hurt. I didn't get shot. At this point in my life, I wish I did, because it's such a better story than what I've got. Maybe I should just start telling people that, not show them I got shot by an invisible bullet. I actually got hurt running. As weird as that sounds, it was about a year ago, 4 years ago this month, June 22nd, so 10 days from now. I'm in my car. It's cold in my car, like good AC. State's really good with that. And I look out in the middle of the interstate, and there's those semis when they lose their tires, right? Those big, long, we call them crocodiles or alligators, right? If you didn't know. And it's in the middle of the interstate. So without stretching, without any forewarning, I get out of my car and I just sprint to the middle of the interstate, plant my right foot, pivot, and I hear this pop, and it's my Achilles and my calf muscle as they connect, and it just popped. It broke. And so, because I'm, getting older, I also kind of chalk it up to the fact that, maybe it's good to stretch, right? Work out a little bit, stretch. And so what happened was a blood clot formed in the healing process of my femoral artery, which they didn't catch until 2 weeks later. And that's when you kind of like, wow, the doc looks at you and says, we're going to do everything we can to save your leg. And hopefully this clot doesn't go to your heart. So we're going to do everything we can to make sure that you come out of this thing alive. And, you're lying on a gurney and you're thinking to yourself, like 40 minutes ago, I was thinking about going to my mom's for dinner, and you're telling me something entirely different. So it was a weird time in my life. I wasn't really sure what was going to happen. But God let me keep my right leg. He took a couple of arteries, they're up in heaven, with one of my teeth that got pulled. So I'm going to heaven. I know, Doc. My old dentist, he's not old. Actually, he is a little old. But Phil used to be my dentist. He's a wonderful man. I don't know if he still practices dentistry. If he does, go to him. He's an amazing guy. Plus, he's a Christian. And while you're like in some sort of state of, being drugged up, he makes you laugh. Anyways, but it's, I'm down a couple arteries. My right foot is a 10.5. With my left foot is an 11. Just kind of a fun little show when I'm at the pool. But God really, there's a time in your life when if you're not thinking about where you're going, you're gonna go off. You're gonna go off path. You're gonna go off the road. And as a trooper for 17 years, I got to work a lot of really beautiful highways. And I know you guys know these things. You guys probably don't pay attention like I do, but the things on the side of the interstates, right? The wood that goes down in there and the big metal goes across, they're called guardrails. You ever seen those? You ever seen a guardrail with somebody hit with a lot of force? I was a homicide detective. I saw a lot of, we called them spaghetti, where cars could just mangle that steel, and you think how much force goes into that guardrail that causes that guardrail to just get ripped out of the ground. All of that, those posts go in with cement, and a car coming in at 80 miles an hour, right? Probably more like 100, and how it just mangles and torques. And those guardrails are meant to actually save your life, because on the other side of that guardrail is impending death, or at least catastrophic doom. And so what I want to talk to us about today is not just guardrails on the highway, because I could stand up here for 30 minutes and share lots of fun stories about being a cop. But I'd rather share with you about personal guardrails. Those guardrails that you have in your life that don't keep you necessarily in the state of right and wrong, but keeps you on the side of wisdom. That as you put these emotional and moral and relational and financial guardrails in place, that you're going to bump up against them. And they're going to let you know, I'm hitting a danger zone. I've been to collisions where the side of the car is just ripped off, and I look back at the guardrail, and the guardrail is still intact. So the guardrail worked. It got damaged, but it wasn't catastrophic. And I've seen people kind of just, you've seen those guys on the phone, they just kind of glance off the guardrail, right? And there's a little bit of scratch, right? They might lose a mirror on the side, but it wakes them up. That's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about this idea that if you have these guardrails in place in your life, that when you bump up against them, they're the personal guardrails that will keep you on the right path. And again, it's not about right and wrong, guys. If it was about right and wrong, that's an easy subject, right? But Jesus didn't talk about right or wrong. He talked about being wise. And what I want to ask you today is, based on your past experiences, your current situation, and your future hopes and dreams, what is the wise thing to do? Past experiences, and we know we've all had those, your current situation, and your future hopes and dreams. What's the wise thing to do? Not the right thing to do. Because if we live in the state of right and wrong, I can justify everything, right? But if I live on the wise path, well, then I start touching into what Jesus started talking about with the heart. Because what did he say? He said, you've heard it said, don't commit adultery. Well, that's physical. So I've never slept with a woman other than my wife. Great. I'm good, right? Wrong. Jesus says, If you've looked at a woman lustfully, you've committed adultery with her in your heart. Hey, Jesus, we're talking about right and wrong. We're talking about black and white, remember? And Jesus says, no, we're talking about wisdom. We're talking about, do you place yourself in a situation where you're going to stray with your mind and your heart? And that will lead to a physical. And Jesus, unbelievable teacher, but he got to the root. He got to the heart. And so we don't actually wake up in the morning thinking to ourselves, today's the day. We're going to ruin our life today. Woo! All right, I'm ready. Let's do this thing. Life stinks, and I'm just going to go right off the edge. Nope. Nobody gets in their car to head over to California thinking to themselves, halfway, honey, this is it. We're just going to go right off to the right. We're going to do this. No. When we get in the car and we start going somewhere, we set a direction. We set a course. You don't just wake up and go, honey, we're going on vacation. Where are we going to go? I have no idea. But we got a full tank of gas, and it's $6 a gallon, babe. We're going to go at least to Prescott. I mean, I don't know, whatever it is. But you have a direction. You have a path. You have a way to go. And if I'm not mistaken, we all like to stay right on the road. And that's us with our spiritual lives. If we're careful, we are going to be able to place money, relationships, morality, and emotions all inside these guardrails that when we bump up against them, we're going to know one way or the other whether or not we're getting into a danger zone. And there's catastrophe and there's doom. And what I want for us today, when we break up into groups, I want to really dive into this because you and I have different set of guardrails. We all come from a different place. And so we can help each other out. Remember, iron sharpening iron. If I don't even have an idea what a guardrail is, and I'm sitting across from somebody who's like, yeah, you know what, I just realized this. I do have guardrails. Share them. Because if you truly are iron sharpening iron, then you're going to help somebody else figure out what an appropriate guardrail is, or at least help them start constructing them. And so this morning, the personal guardrails that we want to talk about aren't just standards of behavior, right? They're not just standards of behavior. They become a matter of your conscience. They're not just rules that you set for yourself. They're wisdom that you place inside your heart. And when you bump up against that guardrail, you know it is not just right or wrong. It is not just justice or injustice. It is wisdom. And Jesus wants us to live a life of wisdom. So, we're going to talk about guardrails. So, Ephesians chapter 5, verse 15 is my verse that sets this whole thing up. It says, "Be very careful then how you live, not as wise, but as unwise." I won't ask. I'll just assume, right, in this room, we probably all go, what, 5-10 miles over the posted speed limit? That's funny. It's a suggestion. We all know that. I'm retired. I don't care. Right? 65? Really? Is that the minimum? Is that the maximum, right? It's the speed limit. It doesn't say maximum speed limit. Minimum speed limit, it should be 65. Guys, we can break laws and not get caught. We can hide money as long as we don't get caught. We can hide our time. We can even hide ourselves and not get caught. We can pretend to be somebody else when we need to be, and nobody ever has to know. And these actions, these behaviors that we have, as long as we don't get caught, kind of live in this world that's like, well, we're good then. And what I'd love to do is make sure that with relationships, so talk about your marriage, any relationship that you might have in your job, friendships, how you spend your time, who you spend your time with. Ask yourself the question, is this person, are these people helping me live a wise life? Because our greatest regrets sometimes revolve around the people that we hang out with. My father-in-law and mother-in-law were in Israel a couple weeks ago. Weird story. He texts me, says, do you know who this is? And I did not know the picture. I'm like, I don't know. Then the guy sends me another picture. He's pointing to his eye. I'm like, okay, getting closer. Still don't know. He sends one word, record. And then it dawned on me. When I was a kid, I used to hang out with a pretty wild bunch of kids. And one of his name was Steve Duran. And we played record tag with my dad's old 45s. They're probably, as my dad likes to remember, they're probably worth about, I don't know, $50,000 to $100,000 for the collection. I mean, Elvis Presley right off, the vinyl machine, like ain't nothing but a hound dog, 45. And we decided as kids to play record tag. It's exactly what you think it is. When you take the record and they are amazing. Steve Duran pops his head up from the car, record comes right there, sticks right in his face. It was so cool. Like we tried to pull it out, and like the grooves in the record kept pulling the skin. And he's screaming, there's blood everywhere. And you know what all of my friends did? We all stayed. And we all helped Steve. No! Like roaches when the lights come on, man. They're just gone. And I'm standing there with Steve. And there was a nurse that lived a couple houses away. I went to her house. She came. Next thing you know, Steve's at the hospital, getting the record pulled out of his face. I tell that story kind of fun, but if I could share with you other stories about the friends that I kept and the trouble that I got in, this principle, the people that you hang out with, you will become. You either change your friends or your friends change you. You either change your wife or your girlfriends, Steve, sorry, just all of them, or they'll change you. Solomon, the wisest man in the world. I love the guy. He says, walk with the wise and become wise. Then he says, for a companion for fools suffers harm. Here's what that means. Walk with the wise and you're wise. Walk with an idiot, you're an idiot. When they get fired, you get fired. When their reputation is ruined, your reputation is ruined. And here's my fun after 17 years. When they get arrested, you get arrested. I can't tell you how many times a guy or a girl in the back of my car, I didn't know they were doing it. You were with them. With relationships, there's a guardrail that you can place that when you bump up against it, you might not ask yourself, well, we're not getting caught. We're just doing this. It won't hurt anybody. That's not the decision, the foundation for your decision. The foundation for your decision is this the wise thing to do? Is this the wisest person I can hang out with? Are they contributing to my growth? Or are they causing me to regress? I may be 50, but do I act like a 10-year-old? The shrapnel that you will feel is real. And it'll hit your heart. And it'll hit your life. And you may not have any physical bruising or physical lacerations, but I'm telling you, gentlemen, relational guardrails will save your heart. from a foolishness fallout. So I want to think about your friendships. There's 3 guardrails to consider. 1, do you catch yourself pretending to be someone other than who you really are? I want to ask you this. When you're with these people, something that's never been a temptation for you before, are you now considering it? There's a night in Vegas, and I know you're supposed to stay in Vegas, but there's a night in Vegas that I'm actually rather ashamed of, because I would have never thought that a night like that would happen. And then the company that I was keeping, homicide detectives in Vegas. What could go wrong? It's like a perfect picture of harmony and peace and humility. We probably gave to the poor and helped people out on the street. Nope. I woke up the next morning. I don't even think I remembered my middle name. My partner, Jerry, described half the evening that I spent in the restroom bowing to the porcelain god, thinking to myself, who was that guy? Something that I would have never considered. And lastly, you hope the people that you care about never know where you were or what you did. You're going to ask those 3 questions, and you're going to ask yourself, guardrails aren't meant to declare something or someone right or wrong. They're meant to get you back to wisdom. So are your friends veering you to wisdom? Sex and money. Let's get it out of the way. Do you have guardrails set up sexually for you? Now, on my phone, it's in the back. Never mind. On my phone, I've got software. My wife is my accountability partner. I don't have social media, right? I do all of these things. Why? Because it's the right thing to do? No, I do all of these things because it's the wise thing to do. So if you don't have software on your phone or your iPad, or my word, even your television at home, you can set up all of those restrictions. Why? I'll be honest with you guys. When you're all alone with your phone, sin will enter your life. I guarantee it. Dave Stone talks, he shared a rather interesting phenomenon. On the back of your phone, if you're like me, you have a picture of an apple with a bite taken out of it. If that is not scary to you when you think about what happens with a single bite of an apple, you should realize that phone that you have in your hand, although it can do wonderful things. I tithe from my phone. I do word studies, biblical word studies and devotions on my iPad. This is a vehicle for good. It is also a vehicle to destruction. And so what are the sexual guardrails that you have? Because here's what I know about society. They're going to push you to watch and to get close and to be very comfortable inside this world where as long as I look, as long as I don't touch, right? But here's the thing. Once you have an affair, what happens? Oh my word, I can't believe that guy. And they get canceled. Bill Hybels had a moral failure. The guy preached for years. Everybody loved Bill Hybels. Guy wrote books. I listened to him. He is a moral failure, and what do we do as a society? We cancel him. What happened to forgiveness? What happened to love? What happened to the fact that he just got caught? As long as it stays hidden, we're all good. That is not the wise thing to do. And certainly, the time that you get caught is not the time for you to start being wise. Start being wise now. Because the last thing you want is for society to be appalled at your behavior and to look around and go, Let's take a look at all your guys' social media accounts, your web search history. Where have your brains been when you're at the gym? Because I don't know about you, when I go to the gym, Lifetime, I swim. I tell my wife, I swim on purpose, hon. She goes, why? I said, because my face is straight down at the bottom of the pool. I swim, I get out. Because the last time I went to the gym, there was an abundance of yoga pants. And I'm like, really? I have to work out physically and mentally? You want to wear blinders when you go to the gym. So where's your mind been? And here's the thing. You're like, but it's all in my mind. It's all in my heart. I keep it there. And what does Jesus remind us? It's not the actual event of right or wrong. Gentlemen, wisdom starts in your heart. And it bubbles up. So what is sin? James says that anything that you do, anything that you know that you should do, and you don't do it, you sin. Right? Easy. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Here's the deal. In the gospel, the economy of the gospel is this. Anything that I do against Joel or lead him into his detriment is a sin. First and foremost. If I don't treat Joel better than myself, I have sinned. The good that I have to do to Joel and anybody else in this room has to be done first. That's what Jesus asks us to do. So if you're not doing that, you're sinning. So the moment that you look at a woman lustfully, you've just placed your wife or significant other second. You're sinning. Anytime you say something wrong or evil about somebody else, you think something about somebody else that's not true, you're sinning because you're bringing them to a place of detriment. And once you do that, the economy of the gospel says, then you're done. Jesus says, I don't have room for you. I'm not saying that, gentlemen. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm telling you right now, that's Jesus. So when it comes to sex and when it comes to money, you might have all the money in the world and you're still empty. You might be this person that wants to buy, and repeat. You actually might be the person that says, I don't have enough. I'm going to save. When you do not put others first with your finances, when you don't put others first inside your heart, you are coming up against those guardrails. And what does Jesus say? Give. Now, I'm not asking you to take all of your money and give it to the poor and then knock on my door. I do have an extra room. You can't stay long, but you can stay some. But the question that Jesus asks is, does your money own you or do you own your money? And if you believe that God owns it all, you will have no trouble giving it away. There's relational guardrails, there's sexual guardrails, and there's financial guardrails. And we all know those guardrails. But here's the last one, emotional. Everything that you think in your heart will come out of your mouth. Jesus says it's not what goes into a person's body, it's what comes out that makes them clean or unclean. So gentlemen, here's the thing. There's 4 emotions. There's guilt, there's anger, there's jealousy, and then there's greed. Guilt, anger, greed, and jealousy. Guilt says, I owe you. I've done something against you, so I owe you an apology. How do I fix that? I confess. Anger says, you owe me. Joel, you hurt me. I'm angry with you. I'm good. I got it here, but I appreciate. Thank you. You owe me. You took something from me. So my response for anger is forgiveness. Is there somebody that you need to forgive? Is there somebody that hurt you and you need to write them a note, send them a text, send them an email? Let them off the hook. Greed says, I owe me. I deserve this. And the response to greed is to give and to be generous. And lastly, jealousy. We've all been there, guys. Jealousy says life owes me. Somebody else has something that I deserved. And I'm going to be jealous. And you know how to break jealousy? You celebrate. And if you find yourself not wanting to celebrate somebody, then they are the reason that you are jealous. And what I like to tell people all the time now is I'm celebrating the dog snot out of you. which is my emotional guardrail. I'm jealous of you. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to celebrate you. I'm going to speak so many kind words towards Jim. I'm going to make sure that everybody knows that Jim is the man. I'm not the man. Jim is the man. And hopefully that will break that cycle of jealousy, and it will allow me to lift myself out. You're going to bump into these guardrails, gentlemen. So when I break up, I'm going to pray. I want you to discuss, do you even have guardrails? Is this the first time you've ever heard of them? Is there biblical guardrails that you can place? Are there verses in your life that you can have that you can come back to this? You are the physical embodiment of iron sharpening iron. This is an opportunity for us to do that. Let's pray. God, I just thank you so much. I thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ. And I thank you for this opportunity to just hear about how we can sharpen each other. God, you love us just the way we are. But you don't want to leave us there. Allow this time for us to sharpen each other, to get better, to be glorifying to you and beneficial for us. It's in your name we pray. Amen.